So first off, I don't know if someone did that before, but I just want to take a moment to just applaud Beta I for putting together this event in probably the best venue I've ever spoke at. You know, it's just beautiful. So please, a round of applause. And then, like yourselves, I'm very keen on hearing from these guys. As she said, I'm Ricardo Vaz Santos. I'm Portuguese, but I live in New York. So actually, I have no idea what we'll be talking about, but I'll just ask a few questions. So why don't we start by you guys introducing yourself? So Rodrigo first.
So I'm originally from Spain, but based in Berlin and working for Point 9 Capital. Point 9 Capital is an early-stage investor doing mostly SaaS and marketplaces, and we do a third of our investments in North America straight, and then the other two-thirds are spread across Europe. And I'm the guy who's usually looking at all the Southern European deals for us.
Okay. My name is Pedro Falcão. I'm a managing partner at LC Ventures. We invest in pre-seed and seed in ICT companies based either in Europe or in the Americas. We have a 5 million euros investment vehicle, and we invest a lot in companies that come out from accelerators, but not only. Myself, I've been previously a business angel and have around 40-something investments spread around Portugal, Spain, Brazil, and the United States.
Hello, my name is Ruben. I'm part of the Launch Hub team. We are a seed fund based out of Bulgaria. We invest in Southeast Europe, starting from Slovenia, ex-Yugoslavia, plus Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece. We have just invested our 9 million fund, and we are raising a new one, which is going to be about 20. Prior to that, I have co-founded the largest Bulgarian internet company. I got all the ups and downs of the dot-com bubble and exited back in 2008. And since then, I sat on the wrong side of the table and started investing in startups.
Cool. So one first question I have for you guys, specifically, I guess we can start with Pedro, is that you both invested as an angel, but also now you started a fund, correct?
Yes.
What are the differences between the two, and why did you decide to do that?
Well, actually, I started first investing through a fund, right? So for many, many years, I was a VC. More recently, about a year and a half ago, I became a business angel, and more recently, I funded these investment vehicles. It's not formally a fund, but there are differences, of course. Normally, usually funds have much more money available. We had 20 million available to invest in startups. As business angel, we are much faster in deciding. Of course, the formalities are almost the same, but we are much more willing to take more risk than as a VC. In a VC, we have the limited partners, we have to take care of them. There are some limitations in terms of the investment policy, and so we have more restrictions.
Cool. And what kind of companies, so is there a specific space that, I can start with Rodrigo, you focus on specifically, or are you just looking for all kinds of deals, or?
Yeah. So I would say like the space where we try to be at Point 9 is what in the US is called super angel fund or micro VC fund. What we try to do is bring the best of both worlds, right? Like on one side you have the great business angels who spend time with you, who are trying to help you, sharing what they saw working and what they saw not working so much. But usually what we saw in Europe is they tend to be very local, which means that it's hard to build vertical expertise if you only do deals in Portugal, because maybe there is one or two SaaS companies in Portugal. So us being focused across the border in SaaS and marketplaces means that we can bring expertise on that. And being supported by a VC fund means that we are able to also provide you enough cash so you can go into the next level. And the way we are split among the team is like one of the partners is the SaaS guru, the other partner is the marketplaces guru, and among the principals, I'm the one who is looking at everything geeky. And geeky means like all kind of companies where the technology is going to build a competitive advantage, and that's based on my previous background as a CTO. So that's a bit of what we do.
Okay, Luben?
We actually have 50-50 investment between B2C and B2B, and what we actually see in our part of the region is that in the B2B we can leverage on really good tech knowledge and product superiority in deep tech and all this kind of stuff. And with the B2C, actually, we consider that there's not enough knowledge in the region for people that have built a really big consumer products. From that perspective, we invest in actually in niche products. So that's pretty much what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Do you, so that's actually something I hear quite often, right? How it's hard to be sort of build consumer-facing products in out of Europe. My own previous company, this little music streaming company called Spotify, had the same stuff. When we actually wanted to actually grow, we had to go to the US. Do you still think that startups, eventually need to do that?
Yes, to some extent it happens. What we are seeing in the region, actually, in order to build a really successful consumer product, you need to go in the most developed hubs, like whether it's going to be the UK or the US, but it
meaning
really
that
helps.
Meaning when you invest, you already expect them to at some point take that step.
Yeah, actually, when we invest, we consider that the best, actually the companies that are going for the global marketplace is actually what we see is keeping their R&D teams in the region and having their business teams either moving or opening offices in the US or the UK.
Cool. And so, what's it like to? I know, for instance, Pedro, we're talking like has investments all across Europe and sort of different countries. So I've been somewhat curious about what's it like to invest in a company here in Portugal versus investing one in that is in Berlin. If there's any reason why you should stick to the same country because of legislation or tax or anything like that.
Okay. From my point of view, the investors should invest in the best startups that they can find, and so borders should not be a limitation. But the majority of investors, they actually limit themselves either to their countries or even sometimes to their regions. There are many reasons for that. Sometimes the money that they get from their LPs limits them. The other things could be either legal limitations. They only understand the law of a certain country. But there is actually a group of travel in the European Union that wants to overcome that and to actually promote cross-border investment. But that's something that is difficult, and only a handful of investors like Luban has actually done.
Mm-hmm. Rodrigo, any comments?
I mean, I will not repeat what everyone says about Portugal, but it's great technology, talent, like good understanding of English. And one benefit that you have here is that the market is small, so it pushes you out very quickly. Like I was looking at the companies of Lisbon Channel yesterday, and half of them can be global from day zero. And that for a seed investor is extremely exciting because if it works, it kind of works in the same way as a consumer or a B2C business, which means like it works in an international scale, and we don't need to face the risk of every new market where you are getting in. So when it's about like market-to-market expansion, then we usually look for companies in the biggest geos in Europe, just because the pool of early adopters there that you have is significant enough to build the traction that allows you to raise the money to go international. When we look at companies here, we expect them to be international first as soon as possible.
What about talent? Like, where do you see the most sort of talented people? Because at the end of the day, it's also always about, you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't surround yourself with the right people, how do you think?
I don't think there is like higher levels of talent anywhere. Like it's like those wild spirits, right? Like people, wherever they are, that they think that they can change the world because they get obsessed about something. And then like the number one challenge is how do you bring the technical expertise or the marketing or the sales expertise that is required. That's the talent that you need to buy, because if you want to scale very quickly, it's better to have someone who already did it. But as a founder, I think you can be born wherever you want, and usually you can build your company at least initially wherever you want. Then later on the challenge is if you don't find the talent that you require to grow your business massively, then you might need to relocate or open other offices. But as a founder, you can do it practically everywhere today.
Come out of anywhere? Do you guys find?
Talking about talent, actually, what's super interesting in our part of the world is that there is high density of engineering talent and super low density of the big guys competing for that talent. We have, let's say, no more than 10 global companies with R&D centers in the whole region. Romania, Bulgaria, and Yugoslavia, ex-Yugoslavia, for instance. And actually, that's good for us, the investors, because actually what happens is that there's enough talent that can go and start their own company. However, this being said, one of the biggest challenges is that there's a lack of marketing, sales, business development expertise. So that, from that perspective, actually, is the most important thing is to find such kind of people. And we actually have really good investments in companies that have been founded by local people, such as you, living for a long time in the US or UK, and they have gone through that cycle. So they come with the expertise that is needed to grow the company.
Pedro?
One thing that I like about Southern Europe startups and also Eastern Europe startups is that in terms of this type of expertise, let's say the IT expertise, it is much more available than in other countries, and it's much cheaper. And also the startups are much leaner. With much less money, they can do much more. And so that's something very interesting for investors that want to invest in this type of region. And in this type of companies, in IT companies in this region. I don't know if you agree, because we make investments in further north and further south.
I'm not fully sure if I agree with that, because what I tend to see is that the companies here, they get the talent cheaper, but it takes them longer to get where they need to be, because this talent hasn't been trained to run a fast-growing startup. So at the end, companies, like, even if it's less burn on a monthly basis, takes pretty much the same amount of money to get where you are attractive for the next investors to get in. So, and adding to the complexity or the competition with the bigger guys, what we have seen usually in our portfolio is that the guys who manage to recruit the best talent is not based on the competition by salaries. It's because they create an amazing company culture. They are building something pretty unique that the people want to join just because of the experience of joining those guys, and then they are willing to take a significant pay cut to do that. And it helps a lot to be in a nice place. So that's something that we see the companies in Barcelona or places like that.
Absolutely. No, I imagine there's a lot of mixed feelings about this. You know, I've heard from actually investors in the Bay Area telling me, what are you doing here? You should be building your company back in Portugal because it would be so much cheaper. But then I always remember, actually, just personal anecdote, when I joined Spotify, I once asked Daniel, like, why would you ever build Spotify in Sweden? You know, it's taxes, it's expensive, all these things. And then over time, I actually don't remember which answer he gave me, but over time I kind of understood that it's not all about cost. There's a lot to say about value, right, and about the culture you built. Yeah. And, you know, as a Portuguese, that's hard to hear because we're always used to, you know, we're very cost-driven, but it's not always about cost, and it takes a while to let go of that, but value is probably more important. But would you say, and this is a question again to Pedro, that Portugal is changing a bit in terms of like the kind of talent we're bringing here? There's, you know, Lisbon is definitely very different than what I remember, and, you know, able to attract talent and retain here.
Yes, and what we have been able as a country is to bring to us foreigners that are very excellent in their expertise in business, in marketing, and in other areas, and they have been able sometimes to find other co-founders here, sometimes more in the tech space that they lack. And many interesting startups are now starting to appear. So in that point of view, I think that that also benefits the ecosystem, the other startups. And now, as we go from year to year, we start to see an acceleration in the terms of the rate of growth of startups, the number of startups that are starting also, and the potential for them to actually become more scalable. I've seen that in this ecosystem.
Fair. And so one question I had that I was quite interested about is that we talk a lot about companies going from Europe to the US. Does the opposite ever happen, Luban?
Well, I have personally invested in 2 companies founded by Bulgarians that intentionally opened their R&D offices in Bulgaria. But I would not say that this is a company that has moved its headquarters back at home. So, no, I haven't seen that.
What do you think it would take, or does even the question make sense? can we expect that?
Well, it depends. I enjoyed very much what I saw the day before in Mary Meeker's Internet Trends. And what she says is that back in the 80s, 65% of the growth has been derived from US, Japan, and Europe. And now 65% of the growth is from emerging Asia plus China. So that being said, maybe at some point of time, companies are going to move eastwards rather than westwards.
Mm-hmm. Cool. You guys?
Well, what has been more common here is to actually, as Ruben said, have the operations and the IT department here in Portugal or in Spain, and then the marketing and sales department either go to the UK or more frequently to the US and to Silicon Valley. That is what is standard. And also, when you change the headquarters of the company to another place like the UK or to the United States, valuation tends also to become higher.
So I've always, the reason I asked this question, by the way, is because I've always been of the opinion that in order to have sort of a healthy ecosystem with, let's call it reasonable valuations, like, I guess right now people wouldn't call reasonable what's being done in the Bay Area, but, as an entrepreneur, I'm used to that as an entrepreneur in the US. But I've always been of the opinion that in order to actually have a healthy ecosystem where you have exits and, and even equity hires, right? But it's still an exit. That you would need big companies to set up offices here, right? A few friends of mine built Sunrise, for instance, which got bought by Microsoft. But in part of the team was in Paris, but there was a Microsoft office in Paris that they could be acquired into, and that's why I'm curious to see when will companies start, opening in Lisbon and the other places in Europe. Mm-hmm.
Well. No, go ahead.
Well, it's super important to have this recycled money, and it's not only about the money, it's about the role models, it's about the expertise, it's about the people that can help the startups, but it could happen also having because let's be realistic, the big exit is in the States in terms of valuation. So there's not only that the market is bigger, and easier to penetrate and easier to do whatever is needed, but the biggest exits are actually there. So from that perspective, you need the exits to happen there, but then this money, expertise, people to recycle in the ecosystem, and being the role model for the other participants, for the other founders.
Cool. So what companies are you looking for at the event?
I beg your pardon?
What companies are you guys looking for, coming to Lisbon Investment Summit?
Actually, what we're doing, we are not looking actively for investment because of our mandate. Our mandate is we invest in companies, as I said, with specific geography. From that perspective, I just came here to enjoy what I see as a flourishing ecosystem, and I was really impressed to see what's going on here. That's why I'm here.
Rodrigo?
For us, it's about trying to find SaaS, and coming back to the previous question that you mentioned, I think it really depends on the business where you should be sitting, right? 2/3 of the revenues in the world of SaaS are made in the US. So you want to be relevant, you probably need to be relevant there, and it probably means that you need to open offices there. In consumer, in marketplaces, there is a lot of marketplaces that are massive only in one geography. And then in fintech is London. So it really depends on the business model that you are following that's going to tell you the geo. And for us, when we look at businesses here, it's all about SaaS businesses that are global from day zero, and that probably means that they don't focus on doing a local Portuguese version, but they just do an English version, try to attract the US market through content marketing and things like that. And when we look at marketplaces, it's things that are proven at least in 2 geographies. Because for us, it's really important to see that there is repeatability on the international expansion. And that probably means that on marketplaces, we look a bit later stage. In Portuguese companies, at SaaS businesses, we can get in earlier.
Okay. Pedro?
We look for companies that can be scalable And of course, that's different because we can invest in pre-seed and seed. And of course, in seed, we already need to see something going on. But the thing is that what we look for more is the team, right? The team is the most important thing. Like 80% of the decision depends on the team. Are they able to execute it? Do they have the competencies needed? That's the most important thing for us.
And I know you've been very active the last 12 months.
Yes, we have invested a lot in the past 18 months, more than 30 startups. But now we are going to keep on with that drive, namely with all the companies that come out of Lisbon Challenge and all the other accelerators that go to Beta.
So still room for a few more.
Still room for many more.
Perfect. So you know his face. His name's there. He's come, actually, it's perfect timing. Actually, we just wrapped up, and I think
we best people on a panel today. Yes, you totally did.
Thank you. Well,
so for all of those who are leaving the room, just don't leave right now because we are having a Q&A, and the coffee break was moved a little bit after, because we are having an announcement to make, which is a good thing. So if you have friends out there, just text them to get back. I don't know.
Thank you.
Do you have questions for anyone who has been here sharing experiences? You don't? Again? Well, they did perfect timing. Here.
Right.
Yay!
Just.
Fossil. I'm from China. I'm a golden residence permit, the new generation of immigration. And you know the best investment we see in the world, I think, is this golden residence permit, because the Portuguese government gained about 20 billion euros from this investment. But now the new generation will immigrate to Portugal, the South Europe, because also Chinese invest a lot in Spain. So, but now the people coming here, right now we have a big problem because Chinese here, normally they do the kind of, the at Martin Morris, those kind of small business. And then when we move here, the people also wonder because they purchase the property, and then the property is there. Also, the house for Chinese purchasing normally empty. No people coming to living here. So it's a kind of waste of resources. And I don't know from your expert point of view on investment, how do you think of this? This investment of the government golden residence permit, and what kind of suggestions from the investment point of view for the people who already immigrate here, how we can cooperate between the generation with this Lisbon or the Portuguese environment? Am I clear?
I don't know. Was the question if, sorry if I misunderstood, but was the question if Chinese investors should invest in Portuguese startups as opposed to buying places here?
I don't think so.
Yes, the background is we Chinese, we already, because the majority of the golden residence permit, the majority is Chinese. We invest like 90% of 20 billion euros here. And the problem is these people we invested here, we found that we got a barrier to do what to do in Portugal. So but you're talking about the Lisbon investment. So how do you think, what kind of suggestions do you give for the investors, Chinese investors of golden residence permit to do here? Like, the idea, I can give you information is most of us, we invested here, we are kind of now the original, the first generation of immigration. If we say we call in the US, we call it, maybe I can call it the second generation.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's a very long question that nobody really understood. And actually kind of Kim Kardashian showed up, which is our prime minister. So nobody cares about this panel anymore. I'm so sorry. And I'm going to ask, please, Pedro Rocha Vieira to come up on stage. A round of applause for you guys. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Having you here.